Hi and welcome back to the course. In this video, we're going to quickly look at how the domain name system works. In the left here in this diagram, we've got your browser, and let's say you're accessing example.com. Now, your browser doesn't know the IP address for example.com, so the first thing it does is it checks to see if the operating system knows the IP address. This can happen if you've accessed it recently, for example. Now, if the operating system knows the IP address, then that's fine. It goes back to the browser and that loads the IP address and all is good. However, normally, the operating system won't know the IP address for a given domain. So what happens is a DNS query begins. Now, the first thing that happens is because the DNS, the domains are so numerous, there are so many domains, many millions of them, it is not a single server that tells you where the IP address for a given domain is. So it goes through a number of steps in trying to find out the IP address related to a single domain. The first thing that happens is we go to one of the root servers. And these are hard-coded in the internet provider system. So there are a few hundred root servers. And when new root servers are added, all of the internet providers update and add the new root servers. And this doesn't happen that often. There's a number of companies that manage the root servers and all is good. So the first thing that happens is we go to a root server. And the root server will tell us, I don't know anything about example.com. That's way too specific. But I know about the .com. So it'll tell us the IP addresses for the .com servers. Okay? So then the browser is like, okay, now I know .com. That's the first part of the address. That's the top level domain, a TLD commonly called. So what it does is it then goes to the .com servers. These are TLD servers, and these are also managed by specific organizations. I think VeriSign is one of the organizations that manages the .com domains. And it asks, okay, do you know anything about example.com's IP address? What's the IP address of example.com? And this TLD server will say, I don't know the IP address of example.com. But I know the IP address of the server that knows the IP address of example.com. So it gives us that. And then at the end, the last step is to go to the server that knows the IP address and ask it, what's the IP address of example.com? And then that tells us the IP address of example.com, which is that down here. And the browser then loads that IP address. So the first thing is to go to a root name server. That tells us the top level domain name servers. And that tells us the authoritative name servers. And that tells us the IP address which we then load. Going back to Cloudflare, what we've set up here, beth.ns.cloudflare.com and justin.ns.cloudflare.com, those are the authoritative name servers. So those are the servers that know the IP address of example.com, or in our case, REST-API-CourseTrial.com. And in our DNS settings, which we can go up here, we can go to the DNS settings, we have defined that IP address. Whenever we go to one of those two name servers, they will know, okay, a record exists, REST-API-CourseTrial.com, and they'll give the browser this IP address. Okay, so that's how the domain name system in a very simplified fashion works. In the description of the lecture, I'm going to put a couple more links to see if you want more info, you can go to that. But the next steps are to modify our DNS settings so they are correct, because right now they're not really correct. We've got a bunch of settings that we don't need, such as the MX settings, and we've got a bunch of settings that are wrong, like the A and the C name records. So in the very next video, let's change them and make sure they are correct and they are pointing to the right server. I'll see you in the very next video.